It's time to dive beneath the surface and into the minds and hearts of your favorite celebrities and pop culture icons. Welcome to Up and Adam.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. And look who I have here with me. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here.
I get so excited when I know that you're going to join me for a live. I know that I said this last time. I get excited, yes, when we talk about your realm of, like what's going on with law and the terms that I don't necessarily always understand. And yeah, I feel like I'm learning something. But when you come over into what I like to call sort of
your world,
yes, of Housewives, I just get excited.
I do too. Look, I have a very clear, what I do on my channel is very clear. We talk about the legal shit that rules all of our lives and we break it down so people understand. But I like a lot of other stuff too. And so I love getting to come on and talk about, the law kind of intersects with everything, but I also watch Housewives. I've watched it forever. So I dig getting to be nerdy about what the ladies are up to. And so I know you keep up so much more than I do with what they're doing off season and what they're doing pre-filming and what they're saying on social. I watch the episodes. I don't really follow them on social that much. So I always love learning what's going on behind the scenes with everybody too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a nerd in that way. I'm not technically, I'm not a law nerd unless I'm a law nerd for you and your channel. However, I am a Housewives nerd. So yes, yeah, for sure.
You are absolutely a law nerd. Look, the law nerds are just people who want to understand a little bit better. So when you're like, look, these are terms I don't mean, but I want to know what they mean. You're curious. And that's what it is. Some people just go law, click off. Not many, but some.
Speaking of law and all, listen, there are some housewives who are going through some kind of sticky situations, or their husbands are. And we did talk about this yesterday. I know, guys, we're here to talk about the Real Housewives of New Jersey. While we get into the conversation, go ahead, hit that like button, show some love. And in the meantime, I don't know if you guys caught it, though. Emily D. Baker posted on her Instagram, on social media, that Tom Girardi was disbarred, which I actually
was rendered inactive. So it's slightly different. He is ineligible to practice. Yeah, he's ineligible to practice law. So he's not completely disbarred, but it's moving that direction. So ineligible to practice means he cannot practice law. They took his license so I guess you could call it disbarred, but they took his license because of the conservatorship. So this isn't them, the state bar reviewing everything he's done and going, oh, this man shouldn't be practicing law. This is the conservatorship essentially says you can't make decisions for yourself. And if you're incapable of making decisions for yourself, then you cannot practice law. So because of the conservatorship, it triggered them saying he's currently ineligible to practice law. But I don't think that status is going to change. I don't think it's going to go back to him being eligible.
Which is, I was about to say something. Now I actually take it back. I was going to text you this morning because I was doing a video on this. And I was going to ask you, does this mean that he was disbarred? And then I was like, I'm not going to waste her time.
Oh, that's you so can text stupid. Me with that. There's picky little things in it. It's ineligible to practice law. In legal muggle speak, it's you can't practice law. You don't have a law license right now. But being disbarred is a disciplinary procedure different than being ineligible to practice law in the particular legal sense of it. But in the broader sense, he cannot practice. He cannot appear on his own behalf as a lawyer. He can appear as an individual representing themselves, but not as an attorney. He can't appear pro hoc vice in another state. Not that he's going to be doing any of that anyway. But I think this is probably heartbreaking for him. But maybe not. He always purported himself to have this huge respect for the law. But if you have a huge respect for the law, you don't do what you did. So...
Oof. Well, I actually thought, and I know, guys, we always do this. We are here to talk about New Jersey, but I do want to say this one thing is I thought that he was ineligible to practice law, not disbarred, but ineligible, only because they just came out. He had a doctor come out who said that he is a forensic and something psychiatrist who focuses on Alzheimer's, and just came out and said that Mr. Girardi has been diagnosed with late onset Alzheimer's. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's probably where that came from, because now they're saying that he doesn't have the capacity to carry out his short-term memory. Is that fair to say?
Well, can't. That's what his brother was saying with regard to this conservatorship. So the doctor would have had to be brought in to proven the conservatorship. Like when we talk about the Britney Spears conservatorship, you have to have medical records to back up why somebody needs a conservatorship. And his brother, Robert Girardi, had gone to both the bankruptcy court and the probate court, which is where conservatorships are heard, saying, hey, we need a conservatorship. He can't participate. He can't remember. He needs all this help. And the granting of the temporary and emergency conservatorship, and it looks like they're moving towards a more permanent, or at least a 1-year conservatorship, not just the temporary emergency one, is what is rendering him and the bar, triggering the bar to very easily be able to say you can't practice law. Because normally there's due process in that. The bar would hold hearings and investigations before they would revoke somebody's ability to practice law. But under the Business and Professions Code in California, and everybody's like, oh my God, this is way too much. Yes, but under the Business and Professions Code, you have to be, mentally capable. You have to have capacity to practice law. And so the conservatorship is showing he doesn't have capacity. That makes it very easy for the bar to say, and he cannot practice law legally either. And it just puts everyone on notice. If you pull up the bar, which is what I pulled up when you and I were texting yesterday, you're like, wait, did you see this? And I was like, no, I hadn't seen that yet because it had just happened the day before. So when you pull up the state bar for the first time ever, it has something other than eligible in good standing. He's never had a disciplinary action on his bar record. You can go to CalBar and look at an attorney's record. You can go look at all their information. And his just said in good standing. And now it says ineligible to practice law. It's a big deal. It's a real big deal.
Oof. All right. Well, I mean...
Yep.
This is a lot.
It's a lot.
There was also an insider who came forward who apparently is close to Erica Girardi. I know this is Beverly Hills again, guys. I'll get to it. But who's close to her, saying that she is not holding back this upcoming season. Normally, she went out of her way to protect Tom. That's not the case now. I don't know if that's all hearsay or if they're trying to kind of sell us on something that it might not be. I know I sent you a ridiculous text yesterday too about it.
No, I can't wait to see it.
But I that's what I was told. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. But with
I am
that,
too.
Yeah. Guys, again, if you haven't already, hit that like button so we can get some more people in the room. And shall we jump into the New Jersey Housewives?
We should absolutely jump into Jersey. I mean, I feel like jump into Jersey. Like, what are these ladies doing? What is happening? Like, for the love of contrived plot lines, can we just talk about last week? I know I couldn't talk last week because I was slammed last week with my own live streams, and I wanted to be here. Because can we talk about the contrived Teresa calling her brother and being like, "So Melissa's talking to the restaurant guy and whatever." Like, why are we
so many people were upset.
Drama?
There were a lot of Bravo fans, Bravo super fans. I always say that. But there were a lot of people who actually were upset only because the way that the super teaser, the trailer, kind of steered us was to the fact that, Melissa Gorga was having these marital problems. But then she's also come out and she's come out in interviews saying like, hey, listen, guys, you're going to see a different side to my marriage, to my relationship. Like, I know that everyone usually loves us together, but we had a really hard time, which plays into that super trailer, the teaser. It does play into that. And then we're watching the episode and we're a few episodes in. I know that we have a lot more to go, but we haven't had that indicator at all that there is anything wrong within the marriage. So it almost seems like she put out that statement in order to play into what the trailer showed to get ratings up. And yeah, people are mad about that because it's not even real. This is the most contrived that it's ever been because they're proving that it's a fake situation. Like they let us into it and they made it a prank. I don't know. Did it annoy you as much as
it really annoyed me. Yeah. And it's one of those things also that I think you don't play with somebody's marriage like that. A, it's manipulative to the fans, but B, it could cause actual problems. But it just shows to me Teresa doesn't care. She's going to manufacture plot lines, and it makes it, I mean, I know it's reality TV and people have kind of the stories that they run down, but the amount of how contrived it was, it felt gross. And then she's also on the phone with her brother saying these things while he's saying the kids are in the car. Like, I'm speaking Italian because the kids are in the car. Okay, well, how do you want kids to differentiate between reality TV and reality? I mean, and we see this on YouTube too. Like when Shane Dawson dropped all the trailers for that Jeffree Star, kind of The Beautiful Life of Jeffree Star. And it was them reacting to the James Charles, Toddy Westbrook drama. And then none of that was covered. People were like, I'm sorry, what? Don't tell me that I'm coming in to see this and then change course. It feels manipulative, and I don't dig that.
I think a good analogy to this, or a comparison that people in the chat might understand too, would almost be like clickbait. Like sometimes I get in trouble. People come at me and they're like, this thumbnail was not exactly what you led on to be. And I'm like, that's not true. I know that it like teeters and I put fired, but that's, this is what the topic was. And now I've learned more and more. I only started my channel back in June, but I've learned over time, don't mess with people. Like if someone clicks on something, or if someone thinks that they're going to see or witness or watch, that's what they want to watch. That's why they're putting their attention into it. Otherwise, there's probably 100 million other things that they could be doing. You know what I mean? So yes.
Yeah, audience manipulation pisses me off. And it's just, I understand pulling people in, but you can do it in a different, like they cut to Teresa being like, oh, Melissa's talking to this guy. And then you cut to the clips of Melissa sitting there like, she's not, she's texting her husband in that scene where they made it seem like she was texting some dude she met at the restaurant. No, Bravo. I don't like it. I'll call Bravo on that. Don't do it.
Well, and it was kind of interesting to watch the fact that Jennifer Aydin, she made, guys, again, I know this was last week's episode, not this week's, but it kind of bleeds into what we're about to talk about.
Yep.
Jennifer Aydin made a point. She's like, we just had this big falling out because you spread a rumor that affected somebody's marriage and their husband. So that obviously didn't end up well because Jackie's not on this girls trip. Why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head,
and the voice of reason a bit, which surprises me.
Well, until next episode when she's falling over at Teresa's pool party drunk. Okay, just to be fair.
I mean, to be fair.
But no, for Teresa, I wanted to ask you this only because I'm sure everyone has their own opinions. Teresa has no problem really butting into everybody else's relationships and their private lives, and even her brother and his business situation. She doesn't care to butt in, but I'm wondering if the reason she is this way, because, older Teresa in the previous seasons, like from the very beginning, she was very private, very guarded, and she kind of stuck with her friends. And sure, she would get low down and dirty, but she was not this dirty, to say. But she now, I feel like, might have this kind of idea in her head, like, look, my situation played out on TV. I went to jail. I shared that. My husband went to jail. We talked about him potentially cheating. You saw where I almost lost everything. So who cares? You sign up for it. Let's do this. You want to play this game? Let's play it. I feel like she almost kind of has this this thing where she's like, I've done it all. I've shared it all, and I've been exposed for it. So if you can't handle it, then that's your problem, which is like, that's not fair, because not everybody's husband is out here, in the streets, like hooking up with somebody or doing bad business deals. That's not necessarily fair to do.
It's not fair to do when it's fake, like when it's not true. I mean, Teresa got called out for things that played out in reality. Photos of her out with people, whether those photos accurately depict what's going on or not, it's fair to have a conversation with them. A court case that played out in public. But I feel like Teresa's got no skeletons left in the closet, and so she just doesn't care. It's Lisa Rinna going, we're on a reality show. You signed up to talk about your life. If it's actually what's happening, yes. If it's contrived, no. And that's where, I don't mind Teresa calling people out and saying, hey, let's put it on blast. Let's talk about it. But I do mind, hey, let's just be like, blah, 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 blah. Here's the this, here's the that. I heard this, I heard that. No. Pictures of things happening is different than just like a whispering that you may or may not have heard.
And, I also want to say one of the disadvantages, at least I think so, and this kind of sounds like a contradiction from me. One of the disadvantages of being this OG housewife is she's been around long enough to know what they're looking for, what they need for content, what it takes. And you can see in multiple scenes. Like one, her walking up to Dolores and saying like, "Hey, let's run," and pretend like something's coming. And then they talk about it and they're like, "What do you think it was? A fox or what?" She didn't even own up to it. It was like, "No, we didn't. We played a joke on you. Nothing." Actually, they shouldn't have even given us that audio. They should have just made it sound like there was something in the woods and they just ran. But then when she also put Danielle Staub up to pulling Margaret Joseph's hair, like
that was awful.
Awful.
By the way, I hated that moment. It was, and when it all blew up, you saw how called out Teresa felt when production showed it.
Yeah.
Like, production's going to show this. Teresa did not like getting called out about instigating stuff. She wants to pull the strings behind the scenes and not get called out for instigating it. And the producers are calling her out on instigating it. But also, we've got Dolores smashing a glass as she's running. It's just so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. It was just honestly, so ridiculous.
It honestly is ridiculous. But also, I want to say this too. I don't know if I necessarily 100% completely blame Teresa for doing some of the things that she does, because I feel like production applauds her and the network applauds her by paying her more and more and then bringing her back. And I'm sure there are conversations off to the side about what they need from the season, where they're lacking. I've seen it with different franchises on Bravo. I've seen it firsthand. Like, I know how this works. So I feel like for Teresa, maybe that wasn't necessarily fair that they shared that, because that they push her to do things.
Right.
But at the same time, you asked this girl to technically physically assault someone. She yanked her hair down. And the irony in all of this is, for anyone who's like a true Real Housewives of New Jersey fan, that Danielle Staub brought a head mannequin to the reunion to show how hard her hair was pulled by, wasn't she a minor at the time, or was she 18?
I don't remember if she was right on the cusp if she was over 18. Yeah, she was right on the cusp when Jackie Loretta's daughter grabbed her hair. But it was like, she's like, oh, she pulled out her weave. I just want to say for everyone, because I have to, because lawyer, an assault is an unwanted touching. So when we talk about the hair pull, people are like, isn't it assault? Is it not an assault? It's an unwanted touching. Yes, it's an assault. Whether you can prosecute it becomes a whole different conversation. But unwanted touching, that is where we get into the assault realm.
That's why when I think I'm about to get physical with somebody and somebody's in my face, I'm like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. No.
I'm not touching you.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on, since we're talking about Teresa, I have had conversations off to the side with her pool guy, Anthony DeLorenzo, known as the pool
You make
man.
it sound so scandalous when you say it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. This guy obviously, listen, I can say this, I'm a gay man. This is a very good looking, sexy man that is in Teresa's life.
Yep.
And I feel like by them introducing him in this episode, I was excited thinking, okay, maybe this could be a thing. But unfortunately, we all know that Teresa has a new man in her life, and it obviously is not. So in the show, they say, well, maybe one day you'll hook up with the pool guy. Guys, hello. Teresa was in jail. Let's be real. People have needs. Yep. I'm not bashing anybody or putting anything out there. She is a very single woman. She can do whatever she wants. And he's also a very single man. If you guys think that this has not happened, but yet her youngest daughter, Adriana, is coming forward and saying like, no, this is the mommy stealer. What would he be stealing for? Look.
The vitamin D is happening with the pool guy, and they've known each other. There's trust there. I mean, we forget because Teresa is brash and bold, but when she says like, I've been with my husband since I was like literally a teen. And I know what that's like because I met my husband when I was 19. Like, her depth of experience with relationships and with other people is pretty shallow. So, I mean, it's fair that she gets to have a phase and go be appreciated, be worshiped, be sexy, be whatever, and maybe not be in a relationship. Like, I'm all for that exploration of Teresa. It's like, girl, get it. Like, get that, adamandeve.com, hit it up, figure out what works for you, find people who are there for you. And you've seen her opening up more about that. Like, I want it on the counter. I want it here. I want it there. She's ready to be in a adventurous relationship, it seems, or at least adventurous, hook up. What do the kids call it these days? I mean, what is it?
I honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe he's FWB, friends with benefit. I don't know what it is, but also, again, I'm not bashing it only because this woman, from what we know, went to jail for something that her husband did that she played no role in. So she stomached that,
She signed the papers. Just saying. She signed the papers.
She signed the papers.
I don't think she understood what was happening.
Right. But that's what I think. I think that
yes,
she didn't understand. Listen, you also, let's give this woman the benefit of the doubt a little bit. She says, I'm going to blow my casket.
Yeah, I know. I don't think she understood. I think she trusted. Look, she grew up being taught that a man's going to kind of tell you what to do and how to be. She grew up and she's shared that on the show. Like, I was brought up to just respect my husband and do what he said. So when he says, sign these papers, she signed the papers. She didn't look into it. She didn't read them. She didn't understand. Here's the paper. But she signed it. So that's the lawyer in me is like, well, she didn't do nothing. She did the one thing. And that's what landed her in jail for signing the papers that were false. It didn't matter if she understood or if she read them, which is how the law works. If you sign it.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, I mean,
I don't think she understood either. When it comes to the liability on that, I don't think she understood the repercussions of what she was doing. I don't think she understood that it was false. And that's where a lot of people want to come out and be like, Erica Girardi should burn. And I'm like, can we just take a step back? We don't know what she knew yet. Can we wait until we know what she knew? Because right now we don't know what she knew. And we kind of know that Teresa wasn't aware of the full implications of what Joe was having her sign. Her husband said, sign it. This is the person she was told by her parents to trust. And she did. She gave up a lot of her autonomy to her husband and a lot of her thought process. And she does say shit wrong all the time. And I kind of live for that. I don't love everything she does.
No, well, exactly. And I also think just to balance that out a little bit, and it doesn't make it right, I feel like he provided her with a lifestyle that made her very happy. She was able to shop. She was able to do whatever she wanted. And then she would come home and she'd be like, baby, I bought diamonds. Oh, don't be mad. Sign this. Okay. Like, I'm not saying she's completely innocent, but I think what you just said made a lot of sense, is that maybe she didn't technically understand. She just kind of went with the flow because that's what she has been kind of brought up to do. And
I think people are encouraged in relationships to do that sometimes. Like you're like, oh, who's the person I'm outsourcing the thought process to? And it's like, oh, am I trusting my husband to make these decisions? Am I trusting my husband to make these financial decisions? And I've had more than a few friends and even people I've consulted with say, I've trusted my husband to do everything. I don't know where our bank accounts are. I don't know where our retirement accounts are. I don't know where any of this is. So it's something that happens in all different kinds of relationships, not just in, straight relationships of who are we outsourcing this thought to? Is it the person who's older, the person who has more education? Who are we outsourcing this to? But both partners in a relationship have to know the things and be comfortable asking. And it's so weird to me that we're like, oh, I'm super comfortable like doing all the things with you, but I don't want to ask about our retirement plans or our bank accounts. Going.
It actually makes me think when I get off of here, because Jason, like, I handle all of the finances and then Jason handles like the YouTube emails and like work, and we kind of just balance off like that. But now I'm like, I want to know what's happening in that email. Okay.
And we talk about it too, because we definitely outsource different parts between what my husband does and what I do. But there's always this, we also have family meetings because I'm a nerd, but there's always this connection of, okay, where is everything? What is everything? So that we both understand. And we have a partnership in that. I feel like Teresa, the way their partnership split down was like, the man handles these things. I shop and look pretty and raise kids. And she and her husband put themselves into those roles, and it bit her in the ass spectacularly. So I'm happy to see her exploring her like single womanhood, but I don't like her being a dick to the other women.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And she's not just being a dick to the other women. Wow. You get me to say things I never say on here.
Sorry, as you bring the cursey words to Adam's channel, I'm trying to keep it down.
No, you can say whatever you want. I don't care. But she is kind of being a dick to her own brother in this episode, only because Teresa has a bad habit of, Melissa called this out, Melissa Gorga, bringing around these floozy sort of friends. Danielle Staub was one of them. Again, I know Danielle Staub was originally Jacqueline's friend, and she was an OG housewife. Okay, so Teresa bringing her around, it's not like she kind of found her, but she did reintroduce her into the group.
She brought her back.
And there's something that's to be said about that, because if you pan over to Beverly Hills Housewives, since we're talking about the Erica stuff,
yep.
Brandy Glanville, the only reason she wasn't a housewife on the upcoming season was because there's nobody who wants to film with her. There aren't people who trust her. They don't want to film with her. They don't want to be associated. And when you kind of get that red X on you're a little bit blacklisted. And for Danielle Staub, she was willing to go places that other people weren't. She thought it would be rewarding. She wanted to be this villain. And unfortunately, with that, people don't want to be around you because you're a loose cannon. You'll say whatever, you'll attack things that are very close, sensitive, and yeah. So with that,
Danielle Staub crosses physical boundaries. Like production can't have that either. Like you can't cross some of those physical boundaries. And yes, we've seen a lot of wine being thrown and glasses being thrown. But once you're putting hands on people, we've seen that not a ton in these franchises and not in every franchise. But once you're going hands-on with people, it's just not going to go well. And we're in a place of like employment law where that can be very problematic for Bravo too, knowing that these people are going to be drinking, and keeping somebody on a franchise that's gone hands-on with somebody can be very problematic. Though Teresa Giudice went hands-on with Andy at a reunion and still stayed on the franchise, but she hasn't since then.
That's true. So. And she has a couple of times with Kim D where she's like, where she grabs at her and she's like, just bang your head against the wall. And she also, Jackie was like, what are you going to throw something? Throw something at me, when they had the bad analogy situation. But no, with this, Teresa brought around a friend, Michelle, I think her last name is Paez or Paez. It's P.
The realtor.
Yeah, Paias. I want to get her on with us one day. I think that would be fun, just to kind of give us her, I guess, take on everything. But Michelle came forward at Jackie's husband's birthday. The only thing, I guess, her husband cheating wasn't the only thing that was being spread. You know, the fact that Melissa Gorga's husband, Joe Gorga, did bad business was also being spread. Yep. The thing is Teresa knew about the rumor with Evan. She knew about it for a long time. She tried to get Jennifer Aiden to come out and say it. So she was almost playing puppeteer, and then that didn't work. So Teresa ended
very
up...
Very LVP of Teresa, isn't it?
It is very LVP of Teresa. But she took matters into her own hands, and she ended up spreading it, which made it very uncomfortable for us to watch because it's not her typical move. So it was... Right. It just didn't even feel like it was real, authentic, or anything. But I guess that wasn't the only thing happening. She brought this woman, Michelle, and Michelle told Jennifer that her husband and Melissa Gorga's husband did business together, growing Gorga, and that he owes him tens of thousands of dollars. So Joe Gorga is in debt. Now, my only question is Teresa, you know how pre-produced and contrived you are coming into the filming situation with these storylines and like what you're going to say, what you're going to do. Did you know riding in with this girl that she was going to say and do what she said? Because when Melissa called her out at the table when they were on the girls trip, her face says it all. Teresa is not a good liar. She looks and she's like, what? But she is a good realtor. What? Who cares? She's talking about your brother. And there's a big double standard here because Joe Gorga does not do that to Teresa. Joe Gorga makes himself sound stupid in order to protect his sister, while his sister is out here throwing mud on his name indirectly. How do you feel about it? And
she's done that time and time again to her brother and sister-in-law. She did it when she brought in that club owner who was just like, oh, this is the guy where Melissa danced. Like, oh, that whole storyline. She kept bringing the parties in to talk about it instead of talking about it directly. Oh, what? Melissa worked for you? And that guy's like, hey, Melissa, remember me? It was the creepiest, slimiest situation. And she keeps doing that to her brother. And I don't know what the beef is. Like, I feel like her brother was the golden son of an Italian family, and she's still bitter about it and is still taking these little shots at him and his wife. And I think it's really unfair, but it's clear that she brought that person into the loop and then was trying to manipulate the situation further, being like, I'm not going to sign with you until you sit down with my brother. Are you joking me that you don't already have an agreement to sign your house with her before she even comes on film? And then you're going to be like, oh, we're not going to sign with you until you fix it with my brother. So now pushing this storyline that Joe's not paying his debts. because that's really something she knows is going to hit her brother in the heart, because that really triggers him. Attacking him as a businessman is going to trigger him to blow up. And we've seen teases of that, haven't we?
I don't know if you've seen the teaser for next week's episode. I know that we see it at the end of the episode of New Jersey Housewives, right? We get a little bit, but Bravo also puts out like extended clips, right?
Oh, I didn't see that yet.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So when we see that Joe Gorga is actually walking up to Michelle's husband, I believe this is at Teresa's pool party, I want to say. I think she's having like one last hurrah in her house before they end up going. So it's at her pool party. That's why all of the women are there. And also Michelle and her husband are there. Joe asked the husband, so I heard you were saying things about, I owe you tens of thousands of dollars. And the guy stood straight up, like with what he said. I mean, can I say in conviction of what was said? Like the guy was, I'm so confused right now, but the guy legitimately looked at him and he said, yeah, that was the plan. You think I was just volunteering my time to you, giving you X, Y, and Z towards growing Gorga to this big event, and I didn't want anything out of it. And then Joe Gorga looked at him and he said, dude, it was a deal. We didn't have anything written out that you were financially going to receive anything. So this is a deal. It's like a handshake deal. And the other guy was like, no, dude, that's not a deal. I didn't do this for free. And Joe Gorga looks at him and said, no, you did it to ride on my coattails. And I was like, ooh.
I haven't seen that clip yet.
What?
Look, man, things have to be in writing. It's first of all, oral contracts and verbal contracts are very, very hard to enforce. And not all states even allow them to be enforced legally. But you have to have things in writing, especially if it's some kind of a profit revenue share. Because what it seems to me from what Joe was saying on the phone this episode with Melissa was, no, I paid him. Like I paid him for the time. There was no revenue share in addition to that. So I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to see what happens. We know Joe's got a hot temper. And we know he doesn't let people come up for his name.
Yeah. I just would not want to piss off. I was about to say little Joe Gorga, but I'm not going to call him little. He's a big hot-headed, he's a meatball guy. Yeah. And even Melissa, though, in the extended clip, calls out Michelle, and she's like, you're going to walk up and you're going to pretend to be all buddy with us as like a group of girls, but you're over here talking about my husband. We have a relationship, obviously, behind the scenes. What are you doing? And she's like, listen, I didn't say anything that wasn't true. It was true. And then that's where they cut it off. And I was like, oh, here we go.
We're going to pop right off. I was disappointed in the ladies this week, and I'd love to know what you think. I was disappointed in how much they were backpedaling for Teresa. It was like, well, Teresa's never going to admit she's wrong, so let's just back away from this slowly. What did you think of the other ladies kind of giving Teresa, like they went at it, but then they're like, she's never going to change, and then just gave her a pass?
I think, and the only reason I say this is because I did my interview with Kim D, guys who had the famous Posh Fashion Show where Danielle Staub got her hair yanked out, right?
Yep.
When I talked to Kim D, I asked her if you could remove somebody from the cast, who would you remove? And she said Teresa, because she feels like the other women are not able to have that sort of authentic conflict and resolution because they're afraid of her. So they'll just always, no matter what, side with her in order to stay on the cast. Now, with Jackie, she didn't kind of fall in that line. She immediately came for Teresa. She questioned things that other people couldn't. And that pissed Teresa off. And I think that's why Teresa came back the way she did. But yeah, I find it to be complete bull. And then after last night's episode on Watch What Happens Live, Dolores was on it. And they had a fan question for Dolores. And they're like, the fans have the same burning question. Why did you go so easy on Teresa? She's like, I didn't go easy on Teresa. I said to Teresa, listen, what you did was wrong. There could have been a better place or time. Maybe you could have done that privately. And it is what it is. Like, I didn't say it. She's my friend. Do I think she was wrong? Yes. But yeah, what do you want me to do about it?
Teresa, Dolores.
Yeah. And I'm kind of thinking in my head, like, okay, well, yeah, I get it. You can't tell her what to say or how to think. But at the same time, like, this is your friend. So you're choosing to be a part of this, in some weird way. But Jennifer Aiden has been surprising me too, because she's been speaking up sort of cowardly in her confessionals. She doesn't say anything to Teresa's face, but she has been talking about in the confessionals, like, listen, you don't want to talk about Jackie, then you do want to talk about Jackie, but only when it fits you to talk about Jackie. Right. When something pops up in your head and you're like, oh, wait, let's talk about Jackie and her husband. Otherwise, if we talk about it, then you're offended, you walk away, you leave the table. What is going on?
Yep. She's absolutely right in that, but she won't say it to Teresa's face. And I think it's because she's afraid and she doesn't want Teresa turned on her. Like she just doesn't want it to turn back around. And nobody does. It's like holding a snake by the tail, right? You don't want it to turn back on you. And that is a problem for New Jersey because while that happens, Teresa gets to drive the narrative of the show. And that can be problematic for the other ladies if Teresa cuts them out of the narrative because the other ladies, if they had strong connections with each other, Teresa would be the one struggling to find her place in the narrative. And instead, this year she came out and was like, we talking shit on everybody up in here, my brother. We're going back to my brother and my sister-in-law. Like we've gotten along for too many seasons and now we're going to throw them under the bus. We're going to throw the woman who threw me under the bus. And we're going to sell the house. I was kind of gutted though, when they were showing the clips of all the packed seasons, when they were walking through the house, I was like, I felt it when they're going through the clips of her dad and her kids. Like there's so many times I could find a lot of empathy for Teresa and then she acts like an asshole. And I'm like, damn it, Teresa, we could be empathetic for you, but you just want to be the villain because people talking about you is better than them not talking about you. But those clips, man, with Gia coming down the stairs for prom and with, her dad, I was like, oh, I felt that. We sold the house my kids came home to when they were born and it's emotional. And I was like, that could have been again, I think this season could have been Teresa coming into her own as a strong, empowered woman, a single mom, finding her identity, finding herself. And instead she decided to go for the cheap shots because she doesn't want to dig deep and actually do some honest work on herself to show the process and how hard it is to grow. And I still want her to show that side of her journey. And she hasn't. Maybe she's saving it for a book. I don't know. That's the part of the journey I still want to see.
Speaking of a book, you brought it up, not me. Margaret said that she had a book deal coming up. You like that segue?
I love that segue. Like softball it to you. Unintended, but it works. Now I'm Teresa.
Well, Margaret did come out and shared the fact that she had her book deal. And when she shared it, it was very random, I guess. But do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of, I think it was a reunion or it was a dinner setting with Taylor Armstrong and Brandi Glanville. And one was like, I got a book deal. Well, the other one was like, okay, well, I got a book deal too. I didn't want to talk about it. And I'm like, geez, we're just handing out book deals to everybody. But for Margaret, she wanted to share growing up in this fashion industry, which I honestly really didn't even know that she was a part of. Same. Yeah. And then hooking up with her boss, I'm like, girl, get in line. You think that you're older and that the younger crowd hasn't done that? We've all hooked up with our bosses. and then just going from there, going down the line of everything that's happened. I don't know. I like Margaret. I find her to be interesting. I think that her husband might have teetered into some territory that maybe he shouldn't have, right? By talking about Evan and saying that he's also heard the same rumors. But I don't know how I really feel about her on the cast. I think she, I guess, is okay for the ensemble cast because she adds a little bit, but I don't find her to be like this standout housewife. I wanted to pick your brain and see how you feel about Margaret.
I think Margaret's still trying to find her place. She had that huge lawsuit with Vineyard Vines over designs and namings and stuff. So she has had a lot go on. She's got this house remodel that was kind of a plot line, but then never finished. It's just very interesting to me, her trying to find where she fits and then trying to leverage this into something else. You saw her come in with the pigtails and then the pigtails were gone. And her mom was a big part of the show. And now we're not really seeing her mom as much. I feel like she's still trying to find her place and maybe wants to be the peacekeeper. I'm not quite sure where she's going to fit this season, but she's built a fairly large business and I'm interested in that. But it seems that all the narratives have kind of moved away from that. I missed that in New York too, when it used to focus on, because half the housewives in New York weren't actually wives of anyone. And it was them being married to their businesses and building their brands. And I enjoyed seeing that too. And I think we can't talk about housewives and not talk about how much they build their brands outside of these franchises because all of them are doing it. And that's, for all of us that love social media, that's really interesting too, watching them build their brands and get deals. And it's something I'd love to see more because you can't pretend this happens in a vacuum. we know that this was filmed ages ago. We know that Teresa's moved on to a new man. We know that the house is sold. Like, we're watching old stuff because social media moves so much faster than the shows do.
Right. Well, for Margaret, you said that she's so successful and her business is thriving. Is that the business where they have?
She built a successful business. I don't know if it's still thriving.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm not sure the current status of her business, but
okay. Well, that's fair. But are you referring to the hospital gowns that they made for the kids that were the superhero themes?
No, she has other clothing lines. Those are the ones that got into trouble with Vineyard Vines. Not the. See, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, because it was on one of the previous seasons where.
No, I loved that with the kids, but I know she has other things as well in addition to that.
Okay, all right, go on, Margaret, go on. Since you did say this though, and I'm going to say this very carefully because I just said you said something else that you didn't say.
No, it's okay. If I said it, it wasn't the intent. See, that's where conversations make so much sense.
And you're like looking at me and you're like, be careful. What are you going to say that I just said? No, you said that it's important and it's fun to, I think, follow these housewives and see what they do with their platforms, how they grow their businesses, how they really become even that much more successful right in front of us after we've already gotten to know who they are here. And then we just watch them kind of grow and develop. Who would you say is the housewife that has grown their wealth and business from when we saw them at the beginning to where they are now? Who's grown the most over time?
Are we just talking New Jersey?
No, all housewives.
Oh man.
I know who I
see.
think.
If we had asked me 8 months ago, I probably would have said Erica because her music career just took off so much with her exposure on Housewives, more into the mainstream. Gosh, and I can't say that anymore because that's not going well. Who else? Dorit also has a ton of lawsuits, and so I'm like, that's not it. Who are you thinking? Bethany. I don't know who I'm thinking. Bethany?
Yeah, just because.
Oh, right, because when we first saw her in Housewives, she was like selling balls inside a Whole Foods. Right?
Yeah.
She was like, these are my nutrition balls or whatever it was as a holistic chef. That's right. Because she had been, and I forget because she's grown so much that when we first saw her, she was in her, in her apartment, with trying to make this natural foods chef thing happen. She had been on another reality show with Martha Stewart, right? So she was definitely trying to make that career happen, and it definitely did.
Yeah, no, and I think she sold. Right. I think she sold a part of the Skinny Girl brand for $100 million. And what's funny is looking back, she drove a bug with her business decal on it, and Ramona was like, "That is so tacky." It's like, well, yep. Ramona, your big statement just came out. And while $380,000 is a lot of money, Bethany does a home renovation with that. Like
right.
You know what I mean?
Cash.
I know that's just one account. I'm sure Ramona has many accounts and she has a lot more money than that. But at the same time, like Bethany is over here, like just doing the damn thing. So
no, True Faith jewelry and Skinny Girl are not the same type of brands. It's just not. Also, like Sonia Morgan is still like killing it with her brands. Like we've seen her try all these different things. I still kind of want a convection oven. Like I don't even know why, but I still want it to happen. So we've definitely seen some interesting business ventures with the women, and I love it.
Actually, and I know again this is a little bit off topic, but guys, New York is the closest to New Jersey, so let's talk about it. I was excited to see after Century 21 closed, and we saw last season where she was so excited about having that kind of debut where she was showing off her clothing line, that she's in Walmart. And I know that a lot of people hate Walmart for
love that she's in Walmart.
I get that, but also she's so much more accessible to the people who watch her. Whereas like some of these people, who are very high society, like not everyone loves the Housewives, but I know if I know anything, I know about some middle America. Okay, I've lived around, I've traveled, I've been to so many different places. I went to 13 different schools. I know about middle America.
Ooh, and 13 different schools is another conversation for another day.
Yeah, right. When I saw Dr. Tiffany Moon go on Dallas and she's like, I've been to 13 different schools. It's like me watching Margaret talk about, I slept with my boss. I'm like, girl,
same.
Like,
Girl, same.
Whatever. But no, I just know that middle America loves Bravo. Loves watching the Housewives. And I think one of the most intriguing things is that it's a lifestyle that a lot of us, and I'll speak on behalf of myself, we don't get to necessarily see or live. So we get to kind of check out of our mom, dad, like lives for a second and just be invested and be like, wow, how amazing does that look? Even though we know that their lives are like, going down the drain as we speak. But yeah, I thought that in my head, if they do announce this Walmart deal on this upcoming season of New York, because it is big and they were filming when it was announced, I was like, I'm sure the first person to down this or disregard the fact, oh, you're in Walmart, would be Ramona Singer. Same. I feel like it's coming and it's going to be her. She's going to be like, well, it's not Saks. It's not Nordstrom. Ramona, I don't know.
It's amazing. It's a pandemic, Ramona. It's interesting watching the way the different franchises have dealt with COVID as well. I really enjoyed seeing how real it was in Orange County and watching it play out, where New Jersey's kind of like, you see the outdoor dining, you see everybody else in masks, but it's clear the women are taking their masks off in the car before they're filmed walking into things, and they're trying to film in locations where they can film almost like COVID's not happening. But from Erica, Broadway shut down not long after Erica started on Broadway as Roxy Hart. Sonia launches this deal and then COVID shuts down retail as we know it. Watching these women bounce back from that is also really interesting to me because we're all trying to pick it up. But Sonia Morgan is really one of my favorite housewives. Like, even when she acts like an asshole, I still root for her. I'm still like, get it, Sonia, because she's just so authentically her. She's just
get yourself on TV and just be like, it happened. And
she's just her. She's her. She's glorious and messy and funny and unashamed and unbridled. She's a puppy. She's just like, she's enthusiastic. She's got to be an Enneagram 7. I love Sonia Morgan.
I love her too. But you did just bring up a really important topic. Another segue for the pandemic. A lot of fans, and I'm reading comments, and I love to read comments and just go through what people are saying. We're upset with the way that the New Jersey Housewives were filming because they're inviting in the chef. Okay, they open the door. They don't have a mask on. He doesn't have a mask on. She doesn't have a mask on. There's these group events. Again, Teresa's pool party. That is not COVID friendly. Nobody's 6 feet apart. It was definitely, if they're filming this girls trip during the pandemic hasn't really ended. So they were filming the pool party during the pandemic, and all of these people are standing right next to each other. So I think the only saving grace that we have here is the idea of knowing that everyone is tested right before coming in. But that doesn't, I don't know if that makes sense or not. People are still upset about this.
I'm sure they are following production COVID protocols for New Jersey while they're filming, but those protocols are very different than the rest of the country. That's not what my summer looked like. They film Jersey in summer. It's like right at the end of summer. So it seems like they're filming last summer. And states were still going in and out of lockdowns. California has never looked like what's going on in New Jersey since a year ago when it shut down. So I can see why people are frustrated with it, because people are frustrated with the losses they've experienced with the pandemic too. And it doesn't seem to be acknowledged much on the show. It's not talked about. So I think if the show addressed it more, you would see it. Like, you catch a glimpse when they're in the van that there's like plexiglass between them and where the drivers are while they're talking. But it doesn't seem to be really well addressed, where like Orange County, they couldn't help but address it. And then with Salt Lake City, they filmed before everything locked down with COVID. So it's interesting to see it, but they don't address it. And I think that's where some of the frustration is.
Right. No, I agree with you. And also, I feel like Orange County, like you said, New Jersey started filming during the summer, whereas Orange County, I think, they started filming right before everything went into lockdown.
Yeah, they were in filming when lockdowns happened in California, and then we're scrambling to figure it out because California locked down fast and hard. You were there when it locked down a year ago, yes?
Yes, it was.
So was I. I mean, it was
0 to 150.
It was, and it was like, I mean, we're in the week where the world shut down now. But the stores with nothing on the shelves, which is unusual in California, the toilet paper, the paper towels, all of the stress, all of the like, don't leave your house unless you're getting groceries. It was very stressful. The messaging around it was very stressful.
I remember
and so watching Orange County
at Costco over some toilet paper and paper towels.
Yep.
Yeah,
it was crazy. There were wait lists. I mean, it was crazy. So I think people are still carrying that with them, watching the way that the different franchises are handling COVID. And it was interesting watching Orange County because they were, for better or for worse, they were speaking out loud how they were feeling without the benefit of hindsight. So they were kind of real timing COVID, where it feels like New Jersey's just ignoring it.
No, I agree. I also think that, just to, I guess, play devil's advocate a little bit here, I would think that production might have had more of a better idea of how to deal with this moving forward into filming by the time that Jersey came around, as opposed to Orange County. As soon as it happened, they were like, what do we do?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't doubt it at all. I think, again, the lack of transparency is what leads to frustration. So not addressing it on the show is, I think, what's leading to people being like, well, what are you all doing? Having these huge parties,
Yeah, exactly. So. Well, jumping right back really quick into Jersey, you said something earlier, and a lot of people get frustrated by this, but it's true. Everyone seems to be giving Teresa Giudice a pass when it comes to this Jackie Goldschneider rumor with her husband cheating on her, whatever the case is. Everyone's giving her a pass. But Jackie and Evan are not really willing to listen to it. They're kind of like, excuse me? We saw it when Jackie sat down with Margaret, and Margaret's like, listen, everything that Teresa does, she's unintentional. She didn't even know what she was doing. She was drinking. Jennifer Aiden said, no, she was drinking. This is not her. She's not a bad person. Joe Gorga, even though Teresa is throwing mud on his name indirectly because she's still a part of it, but she didn't say it. And we love that. That's a good LVP moment. She didn't say it, but she's still there. Her hand's still in the cookie jar, right? Joe Gorga sat there and he tried saying, maybe my sister was trying to say this to help you guys and try to be a good friend to you. And they both looked and they were like, that is the dumbest thing that we've heard. And he started laughing
and he was like,
what? I tried.
Yep. He was like, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's dumb of me to say. Again, it goes to what we talked about with the snake, holding a snake by the tail. The ladies actually at least approached it with Teresa at the house. They told her that they thought she was wrong. But the second she pushed back and was like, this is bullshit, and stormed out, they were just telling you, look, man, you're wrong in this instance. Like, yes, she was wrong too, but you were also wrong. So you can't say that you were the only one who was wrong. You were also wrong. Jackie, it wasn't just Jackie. You started this. What you did was BS. Knock it off. And she lost her mind and stormed out into her room and was like, ah! And everybody was like, well, we brought it up. We're done now. We brought it up. She got mad. We're all done. And then they moved on. But what else do you do with Teresa? Are you going to fight with her all season?
So wait a minute. In your opinion, who has to kind of give a little bit here?
Teresa. She's just not going to. I think Teresa has to give. I absolutely do. I just don't think she's going to.
Even though Jackie used the analogy that had Teresa's daughter involved in it, when Teresa's daughter had really no dog in this fight.
Yeah, I don't love that either, because we've talked about it and I don't love the analogy. But when you're looking at why the analogy happened, it happened because of what Teresa did. So Teresa has to say, look, I understand why you said that to me and I do not like it. But I shouldn't have done this at the birthday party. It's a rumor I heard. I shouldn't have brought it up. I should have come to you directly, which would allow Jackie to say, you're right, the timing was terrible and I shouldn't have brought Gia into it. You made me see red just the same way you see red sometimes. And I didn't think you understood that you hurt my family. And I struck out to hurt you using one of your family members. And I shouldn't have done that either. That is the only way those two are going to come back together. Because Jackie kind of got the receiving end of Teresa coming after her for really no reason this summer. So I feel like if Teresa doesn't give a little bit, there's no way that Jackie should have to give. She might do it to keep the peace and go on trips with the girls. But Teresa's the one who started the issue. And but for Teresa saying that about her husband, Jackie never would have made the analogy. So It's the causation. Teresa caused the issue. Jackie was also wrong, but the person who caused the issue kind of is the one that has to give a little bit, in my opinion.
Well, since we're talking about New Jersey Housewives, I did want to point this out because I was watching Jackie talk at her husband's second birthday party, and I'm just watching her, like, her hands flail around, and I can't help but see diamonds and diamonds and more diamonds and these, like, amazing rings that she has on. And we've talked about it in previous seasons. Jackie's loaded. She has family money. She has a lot of money, but does not act like it. Obviously, she throws parties for her kids. She orders a box of pizza. She's like, have at it. You know, she doesn't really go over the top. Whereas Jennifer Aydin's like, look at my 11 bathrooms. I have this mansion. And I don't think
the Chanel necklace this last episode.
Oh my, how much do you think something like that would cost?
I have no idea. Too much to maybe too much?
Like
for what it is? I mean, we're in over what? Over 10,000? Yeah, probably. It's huge.
Like who's anyways, that's where I was getting to at this on this conversation. That's where I was going is, you know, there's someone like Jennifer Aydin who is like money, money, money. Even in her tagline, she's like, whoever said money isn't everything doesn't have my credit card limit. And it's like
also tone deaf as hell during a pandemic where people have, like, the fact that her husband has still been able to work. A lot of doctors haven't. I know doctors that have lost their jobs, especially younger doctors who are trying to build their practices because, especially in California, you can't do elective surgery for months and months and months on end. So the fact that her husband was still able to work, we closed a business during the pandemic. So to be like, oh, nobody has my credit limit. It's like the fact that your husband was still able to work and maintain your lifestyle during this is something that's a blessing for you and your family, but it feels very tone deaf given the time that we're in. 2019, that tagline would have been hilarious. Maybe in 2023, it'll be funny again. But it just, with how much is going on, it just sits badly with me. You don't have my credit limit. It's like people can't pay their credit lines because they don't have jobs because everything got shut down. It just is, ugh. It just isn't a good look.
If Dr. Bill divorces you at ASS, we might have your credit limit. So be careful.
I mean,
things change overnight. I mean, you never know. So it's just not, like you said, it's not a good look. And another very famous housewife that we've mentioned a few times here today, I love her to death. I also used to work for her, of course, LVP. She came out in an interview, or maybe it was even a podcast here recently, and she was talking about the closings of her restaurants and how having 4 different restaurants, right, in Los Angeles, 1 being in Beverly Hills, 3 being in West Hollywood, what the taxes, what that looks like financially to shut down and not have any income over a year, that's a huge blow. And I think that is important for people to realize, because it's not just people who are not well off who are trying to start businesses who are losing their business. It's going across the board, like you just said. I mean, you shut down a business. I didn't have a business to shut down, thank God. But
I mean, we saw even the Cheesecake Factory. The Cheesecake Factory was like, we can't pay our mortgages, so we're not like, we can't pay our rents for all of these like anchor locations at malls, so we're not. Movie theater chains, all of the different various clothing lines going out of business. Now we're seeing like Becca Cosmetics is like, we're going out of business. We're seeing a big shift in the economy. So it just, the tone deafness of like the flossing this season, I know that's part of what Housewives is about. It just hits a little different in the middle of all of this. And I think that's where you're seeing the frustration online is Jersey's coming off a little tone deaf this season, like all of it.
Okay. No, that's fair. And tone deaf is one thing, but what about just deaf to your husband's feelings? I want to point out how we ended off this episode. I want to point out how we ended off this episode, and it was with Jackie's toast, which was still fun, but she made almost every single guest, I think, walk up to her husband and say, listen, we don't believe that you're a cheater. We don't believe that you're hooking up with other women. And I felt so uncomfortable for him during this whole party. And I know Andy Cohen, guys, if you watched What Happens Live last night, you see Andy Cohen ask Dolores, like, how comfortable were you? Because this seemed a little bit awkward. And she's like, yeah, it was weird. She kept bringing it up every minute. But just like Teresa, they both don't want to talk about it, but then they keep bringing it up. And it's the center of the conversation. And of course, this man over here, Evan, is sitting there like, what What am I doing?
Yeah.
It was kind of cringeworthy. Did you pick up on that, or were you just like, no, it's whatever?
Oh no, it was awkward. I mean, I think if you really want to make him feel, I got the sense that she was like, I'm going to get you back into your friend group, honey. I'm going to make you more comfortable with the guys again. I've got this. And it felt to me the way that a parent would try to fix a friend group issue with like an 8-year-old. Like, hey guys, can we all just say that we understand? Like, it felt very parental to me, which I get it, but I try not to mother my husband. That is not my job. He is a grown ass man. So his relationships, I'm here to talk about it and talk out the way things happen, but your relationships are your own as an adult to have with the other individuals. So it felt like a mom trying to get their kid back integrated into a friend group after there had been a fight with like 8-year-olds. So it was also cringe to me. I don't love it. And the guys on Jersey are such a fun group of husbands.
I love them.
I do too. They seem like a fun group of dudes. If Evan had shown up, they'd be like, we don't really care what you're doing. We just want to have no drama, have some drinks and play some poker. Can we just be fine?
The guys are honestly, I think the Real Housewives of New Jersey husbands are the only husbands that really make an effort to get together. I mean, unless you're talking about old school, like Orange County Housewives, when Heather Dubrow and Terry Dubrow, they were all a part of it. That was a little bit different, but even still, they didn't get together like a good, close friend group. This feels like a good, close friend group. But I think Dolores made a very good point in this episode is, this is a small pond. That's why Teresa is talking and potentially hooking up with this man who she's known since school. She married her husband from school. You know what I mean? It's just and I know that you married you found your husband at 19.
I met him at 19, but I also grew up so I have family from Jersey, but I grew up in a very small pond in Southern California. Like I grew up in Manhattan Beach outside of LA. When I had kids in school, I'm looking at like the girl who was homecoming queen when I was a sophomore has daughters my son's age and they're all friends. And she's also my brother's like boss at one point. And I have lived in that kind of an environment where everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everybody from school. Everyone knows where your mom still lives. You still see people's parents at the grocery store. Like you can't get outside of it. And it can be a very interesting environment. So it is a small pond. But I understand that small pond, which is why when you're reinventing yourself, a move like even a few towns over might be a really good thing for Teresa.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. I like that. I mean, I was going to say I kind of grew up in a small pond too a little bit, but I lived in small ponds. I just moved around a lot, but I met my fiance at 20 years old. Technically, I was in a bar that I shouldn't have been in. I introduced myself 8 times and then he stopped me from getting hit by a car. So it was great.
Love. I love it.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question, Adam?
Yes.
Would you rather have been at poker with the guys or Lake George with the ladies during this episode? Or I guess it was last episode they were playing poker.
I'm a girls guy.
I know I am. I love the girls too, but I kind of want to hang out with the husbands of New Jersey more than I want to hang out with this cast of women.
I would like to hang out with them differently, but I've actually hung out with at Pump. I've hung out with Dolores and Jennifer Aiden. Because Dolores is really good friends with one of my friends, Joey, and she's such a sweetheart. They are so much fun, and I
love this. I don't know any of this. I think take Teresa out of the group, it'd be a fun group to hang out with.
My gosh, it would be. They're a fun group. Like even at Pump, Jason can tell you. Jason was running Pump. I was working at Tom Tom restaurant serving, but I would come over after and then just drink at Pump. The only rule is that LVP has, and like the firm will go.
Very royals of you.
Yes. That they have is when you get off work, you have to change out your uniform and just put on a regular shirt, and then you can come drink for free, do whatever. So we would, and everybody would walk over. And I remember Jason's like, Dolores is over there in the corner with Joey. Joey was our friend. And I was like, oh my God, I have to go meet her. So I thought
is Dolores as gorgeous in person as she seems? Because when you see her sitting there with no makeup on, you're like, girl.
Well,
Dolores seems stunning.
She was dressed up. I mean, she was dressed to impress the night that I saw her, but just stunning. But even more than her physical beauty, her personality is like, it shines. And I I think she actually called me out that night because I walked over and I said to Jason, I was like, watch this. And I was like, Joey, hey, how are you? This is crazy. You're a pump. He's at pump every single night. Of course he's at pump. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you're Dolores from New Jersey Housewives. And she's like, hey. And then she's like, if you knew that, don't act like you don't know. And she's like, it's okay. You need to sit down. She's like, sit down, have a drink. She's like, you're cute. And then she told me that I had a Bravo face. And then that was it.
You totally have a Bravo face.
She said, I said to Jason, I said, what is a Bravo face? And he said, I'm not sure. And then after that, I think it was probably about 6 months later, Jason and I sat down for multiple casting sessions with Vanderpump Rules, going through that whole situation before everything closed down. And then him and I had a real talk, sit down. Because, it sounds fun at first. You talk about like the glamour and like being a part of a show and what comes with it. You see that some of these, I'm not calling them all idiots, but you see some of these idiots from these different franchises, especially from VPR, they're buying $2 million homes. And you're like, hey, I know that I'm putting myself out there, but they're buying $2 million homes.
Like, I have a Bravo face. I would also like a $2 million home. Please.
I would love a $2 million home. But then when Jason and I talked, it's like, Jason's like, I don't know if people are going to love you after you go out there and like somebody calls you an asshole and you've had 6 drinks. I think that you might be problematic. And I was like, oof. Yes, Jason, you are right.
We love that honesty, by the way. I think you can build it for yourself, though. And I really think that it takes a lot of strength of character to say, but I can build this for myself.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
No, thanks. Yeah. No, and honestly, it's a way almost like Kris Jenner kind of built it for herself. And I know I'm not comparing to Kris Jenner, but Kris Jenner took control over the narrative of her family by making sure that she was a producer on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Yep. And it's one of the reasons like everyone was going nuts after they found out Kardashians were like that the whole franchise was coming to an end. And they were like, oh my God, Kris is friends with Lisa Rinna, Kyle Richards, Faye Resnick. She's going to be going to Bravo and she's going to be joining the Housewives. I was like, no freaking way. She doesn't have
she doesn't need to be on. She doesn't need to open her life up in that way.
Yeah, she doesn't. It's not even like she gets 10% out of all of her chitlins, all of those kids. Kylie's making almost $1 billion. Kim's over here making $1 billion. That's $100 million each right there, $200 million. Let's talk about Khloe, Kourtney, Kendall. We know Rob's not making anything. Rob, we love you, but you didn't get the right gender here, man. Because the girl,
I think it's got to be hard to be Rob in that family, right? It's got to be tough.
Yeah.
So he's had lots of opportunity. I have no idea what Rob's doing. I mean, there were socks for a while.
I don't think that. I mean, I think at this point
everybody had socks. Scott Disick has definitely turned his time with the Kardashians into a lot more than I think Rob has.
I was at first hopeful to see if we would get a little bit of a glimpse of Amelia, Lisa Rinna's daughter, and Scott Disick's relationship on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I don't feel like we will. 1, because he's already on E. 2, because it's about Lisa Rinna, not necessarily her daughters. But I'm sure Lisa Rinna will have a conversation with her daughter to kind of skew it into the storyline. Yep. But yeah, you're right. Scott Disick has made a fortune for himself and a name after appearing on the Kardashians. He did something with that fame because listen, the guy is a lot of things. The guy comes off like an ass. He is rude, sometimes very disrespectful. Sometimes the way he talks to women, I still grew up Southern. So even as a gay man, if there's a woman who's in front of me I still open the door. I open my friends' car doors for them just because I grew up that way. And
you need a Tesla, and then it'll just open the doors for itself.
Yeah. See, well, we're not in that. We're still middle America without the Tesla. I know. Again, guys, I'm not bashing everyone. I'm sure some of you middle Americans have Teslas, but I was not cut from that cloth. Okay. So with that, it's like, no, I just grew up a different way, and watching him on TV, I'm like, man, sometimes you're a little bit of an asshole. And he somehow turned all of that, made Kris Jenner his best friend. She loves him, and he made a business out of it, out of flipping homes. And that stupid, I don't want to say stupid. Actually, it's not stupid because it's selling, and that was wrong. But his brand Talentless, which is actually on brand because he is kind of talentless. Yeah.
He's scrappy. And he's somebody we've watched go through what I think are the worst parts of his life on television. Punching mirrors, fighting with his baby mama, losing both of his parents, dealing with significant substance use issues. We've seen him at his lowest. We've seen, I think, kind of the raw and dirty with Scott Disick, and he's been able to bounce back and say, I'm not perfect. This is who I am, and keep going. It takes a very strong person. So there might not be a lot of talent there, but there's a lot of strength there that he's been able to turn it around and turn the joke back on himself too. That's not easy, I can imagine. The amount of stuff we've seen from Scott Disick, I would imagine is hard to bounce back from. Like that would break a lot of people having those moments on TV.
I agree. And I know that you also you're from California. I'm not from California, but I lived in California. I just kind of going back before we shut this down. And again, I know this isn't New Jersey, but I love sharing like these little random stories because sometimes it makes you think,
love hearing your stories.
Yeah,
I love hearing your stories.
I was sent by Wilhelmina when I was living in LA, I think it was 21. They sent me to
This is the beginning of the most LA conversation we're ever going to have.
I know. And it's very cliche, but whatever. It's okay.
No, I love it so much. I'm here for all of it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. They sent me to this Target casting. I was okay. It was a commercial, whatever. And they made me jump up in the air and put my legs behind me and be like, wee, and do all these crazy things. And I was like, yay, winter, Christmas. I didn't get the job because I sucked and I looked like shit. I met this girl in the waiting room. Her name was Christine Burke. We ended up becoming really good friends. And I moved away to Thailand, and all of a sudden I'm looking, and I love celebrity gossip and celebrity news. And I see Christine Burke and Scott Disick are dating. And I was like, what? This girl that I just met, who's like from Pennsylvania, from nowhere, and she was beautiful, but very young. I was 20. I think she was just barely 18. Or 21, and she was just barely 18. Yep. It was like, what? Then fast forward 3 years later, Jason and I moved from Thailand, moved to New York, and then we're like, we can't do the winter. Moved back to California, and I was working in nightclubs with like the bottle service girls, holding them on your shoulders, going, hey. And Scott Disick was having his birthday party at Tao. Boom, I pan over and I look, and I was like, this guy. And right next to him was Christine Burke, my friend. So I walk over and I was like, hey, and she embraced me, hugged me, whatever. And I was like, oh man, nice to meet you, Scott. And he just kind of looked at me and brushed me off. And I walked away. I was not even mad about it. I was like, this is what I expected. I expected you to be that asshole, which is fine. Yeah. That is good. And you're also at a club. So I don't want to bother you because you're doing business or whatever this is. You're at a club. But it was what it was. And it was my Scott story. I've never seen any of the Kardashians out except I saw Kim at a taping of Ellen DeGeneres, but I've been so infatuated with their lifestyles and keeping up with the Kardashians for so many years that when I had that moment, I was like, wow, this is great. I embraced it, Okay.
I love that. So my running around LA was totally different because I grew up, in the South Bay, which is its own little bubble. I did not do the scene things. And I spent a lot of time in school with my friends and not really doing that part of LA because I'm like, I'm not doing that part of LA. And so I didn't really see, you saw people out and around when they came into Manhattan Beach, and celebrities would come have homes down there and be around, but it wasn't, I don't know. It was just a different experience growing up kind of outside of LA, but just being like, we're not doing all of this. This is way too much. But I'm also old. So I can imagine what it would be like now growing up outside of LA, which I didn't want to imagine, which is why we moved out of LA.
Yeah. Well, we have our own reasons too, of course. But, I think it's kind of interesting looking back. And I know this is off topic, but just running around LA with my friends and being that 21-year-old who thinks it's so cool to be invited to a party where there's like a carpet and thinking like you said,
it's cool,
a part of the scene. But then I remember thinking back when I was that age and I'm like, people are in college, University of what? Texas, Baylor, that's so cute. I'm over here and I'm on the scene. And now I look back and I'm like, I envy every single person who went to college. Like, if you really just put your focus on having an education, having this bomb-ass career, it's really starting to show. I'm 27 now. Now I'm looking at my friends who are 27, 28, 29, and 30. And I'm like, damn, you just bought a house like that? Or, you're making this kind of money with this career. Like, good for you. How did this happen? They're like, while you were partying, I was over here going to school. So we took different paths. And I look
college
back
has its own scene too. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely did before I transferred. I did the fraternity sorority scene, and it's its own scene, right? You become this little microcosm of the who's who of your college campus, and it's just so exaggerated in LA because it's in magazines and there's celebrity lumped all in with it. College was a good place for me. It kept me from going completely off the rails because there was still accountability, where doing a different kind of scene in LA probably wouldn't have gone well for me. But I met my husband at 19 after I got injured playing water polo, because I played Division I water polo in college before I got hurt. And he was like, "What is the plan here?" And I'm like, I didn't really plan past water polo, truthfully. And so he was in a postgraduate program. I was in, undergrad, and we spent most of our time studying. And then he finished his postgraduate program as I started law school. And so we spent the first chunk of our relationship in a lot of school. And it's just a different route. No good or bad or better or worse, because the things you would learn in the scene in LA are lessons that sometimes kids that spend their time in academics don't learn. Those people skills, the what's real, what's fake. Learn that.
Your grammar is a lot better than mine.
I mean, sometimes, but not always. But that's also, I also spent 10 plus years of a career doing trial work where you have to communicate effectively to a jury of people that do not want to be there. Like, trying to communicate to people who don't want to be where they are and then have them do what you want them to do while you're pulling them out of their lives. No one really wants to be on jury duty. Nobody wants to be on jury duty for a week. Nobody wants to be on jury duty for longer than a week. So to be able to communicate with them and keep them engaged is a interpersonal skill set, but you're super engaging. You're like you didn't go to law school, but you would keep a jury captivated for a week. They would love to hear what you have to say. So,
hey, thanks. I'll keep you around.
In my non-Bravo face, we'll stay.
Theo, I appreciate that. I said, Adam, who needs grammar when you have a shining personality? Well, Absolutely. You're blowing smoke up my, but that's okay. I do want to say this before we end off. I do have I'm about to go on, guys, on Real Housewives of Dallas, do the recap with Ika Wong at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. So in about 10 minutes, but I can't.
We always go long and you're always like, I have something else.
Oh,
I feel so bad.
I like it because I don't expect, honestly, I think it's because I don't expect, and this isn't anything against anybody else who I collab with at all. This is just such an effortless conversation with you. It goes and goes, and I could do it all day. I don't have that same kind of situation with everybody that I collab with. Sometimes I jump on with people, and after 10 minutes, I'm like, I don't know what to do. But, and without naming any names, it just is what it is. You click with different people. But what I wanted to say is you just hit 90,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I have a burning question for you. So First of all, congratulations, because that's amazing. Anybody who's on YouTube knows that over time, building subscribers, like, it really, as YouTubers, like, I think we're thankful. I love the people who follow and subscribe to my channel. And when I watch the number build, I'm just so grateful because I was not expecting it. But then also, two, everyone knows that at 100,000 subscribers, you get that fun, beautiful little silver plaque. Mm-hmm. Did you know that you have to pay for that?
I did know, but I knew because other YouTubers let me know that's the way that it was. Other YouTubers, as my channel was growing, were like, girl, let us tell you what it is. But my 13-year-old has said to me frequently, I'm not a real YouTuber until I have a play button. Like, as my life and my business has pivoted into commentary, it's very interesting because everybody used to have a solid handle on like what I did, particularly my parents. Like, oh, our daughter's a district attorney, or oh, our daughter is a, legal consultant for entrepreneurs. And my mom's like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a legal commentator. And her friends are like, but where does she do legal commentary? My mom's like, on YouTube. So it's interesting taking this kind of intangible thing. The play button makes it more tangible. It's going to go back over there when it comes in. And it's we're dyeing our hair. The law nerds know we're dyeing our hair purple. Me. Others have said they are joining me. Dyeing my hair purple to celebrate 100K when we hit it. I am still blown away by the community and blown away by how much people are willing to have conversations and willing to engage with what the law says, when we disagree with what the law says, how the law works, and have some fun and not take it all so serious. So I love it. It's just been like the pleasure of my life to get to be on the internet talking about shit I love to talk about. It's great. So yeah, we're at 90. We're at 90.2 right now. It's
90.2. Look at that. And if you will let me, or you don't even have to let me, I will sit here just in my own, like, whatever, enjoying you hitting 100,000 subscribers. I'll put on, listen, I can't dye my hair purple. Okay. I can't do that. Me with purple hair, it's not going to be cute, but
it would be amazing, but you don't have to dye your hair.
I can do that.
We can celebrate.
Spray, and I can join in on the celebration, and
we can celebrate.
We
can celebrate. Who knows what franchise will be in when we hit 100K. And again, the subscriber numbers, the reason they matter to me is the more people we have having the conversation and understanding the world we live in, I think the better of a place it is. And that is the thing that is truly, truly my pleasure. But yeah, playing, you have to pay for the play button.
We have to figure out how much that play button is, but
I'll let you know when I have to do it. We'll spill the beans on all of that. And then I'll just keep hitting milestones to tell everybody. I want to know how much the 10 million play button costs. Like, it comes in like a trunk and shit. Like, I want to know how much that costs.
I didn't even
Maybe
know
one day we'll get there.
What is a 10 million play button? Oh my gosh.
It's a diamond. What? You don't,
I have to look it up. I got here in June. I didn't expect anybody to, I didn't think anyone was even gonna want to listen to me. So thanks, guys.
I love you. You've grown so much, but I will share all the YouTube. I'm a giant YouTube nerd. I'm in other creator chats and the YouTube Clubhouse spaces. I love talking about being a creator on this platform. I love it so much. I love YouTube. But that 10K play button is like a diamond play button with a diamond in the middle. Rosanna Pansino over on Nerdy Nummies made a cake out of it. Like, look up some unboxings of the 10 million play button. It's a thing. Maybe not David Dobrik's, like, maybe not that. But Rosanna Pansino on Nerdy Nummies did a whole unboxing of her diamond play button. And it's endearing and adorable. And I love supporting creators, and I love the awards that YouTube's like, here's your prize.
Yeah, I'll take.
I love prizes.
The silver YouTube play button is going to be everything to me, and I know that sounds ridiculous because it's
not. I love it too.
But I mean, everybody that I usually collab with, you know what's funny is most of my collabs are like way over 100K, and I have to say you're probably my favorite collab, and you're just, even you being at 90K, and we're talking about like you hitting the play button. I think it's so crazy because people look and they're like, oh, 37,000 or 90K or 80,000. I'm like, guys, that is a lot. It's
a lot of people.
It's hard to kind of accumulate this. So honestly, it's really, it's a pat on the back. It means something. Shit means something.
It does. It does. And I don't judge, like, I don't look at channels by their sub numbers, because there are so many channels that you look at their sub numbers and are like, why does this person not have 3 million subs? They're delightful to watch. So, I mean, sub numbers are what they are, and they matter on platform, but they don't tell you somebody's a great YouTuber or not a great YouTuber. I mean, the Paul brothers, I would never want to collaborate with. They've got all the sub numbers in the world, but I can't watch their content because it's A, I'm not their audience, but B, I don't love what they're bringing into the world. Right. Which is why I love being on this channel. You're not just bringing commentary on these franchises we love, but you're bringing your personality and your experience and your stories. And that's the best. And your Bravo face.
Hey, Bravo face. Well,
up and Adam, I have a Bravo face. I mean, I need Bravo. Can you make Bravo face merch? I mean, maybe not. Bravo's probably trademarked to put on merch, but we would know what it meant.
Bravo, and I put something like, I put an icon over the A, so I'm like, you can't get me. No.
As long as you're not selling it on merch, but we could definitely make you Bravo face merch in some way. It would be really fun.
I like that. Well, Emily, as always,
it's a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. This has been amazing. I don't think I've ever done a live on my channel aside from an interview with somebody from TLC that if whoever's watching this knows, they were stuck with me. It went over like 2 hours and something minutes. It was a guy from TLC's 90 Day, and it was like where people were actually writing in the chat, Jason, go get Adam a drink, and you would see like a hand enter into the camera, that, like a glass of champagne, and be like. But you know, I really enjoy this, and I normally don't go this long. So again, as always, I appreciate you. I thank you so much for joining me. I love talking Housewives with you, and I hope we can steal you in the future. I would love
you will definitely steal me in the future, and I will let you know. I can't wait to go see your conversation with 90 Day, and the Law Nerds know that this is like a short stream for Emily. So welcome to my world of long form content. I want to hear what your view time is like on the long form content, because you might be surprised. You're going to surprise yourself with this.
All right. And then we'll circle back.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
And if anyone's living under a rock, can you please just let us know where we can find you?
Oh, yes. I'm at the Emily D. Baker all over social media, here on YouTube and on Instagram and Twitter and on Clubhouse. And if you guys are Law Nerds in the chat and you're not subscribed to Adam, the Law Nerds that come on over are my Housewife fan Law Nerds. So make sure you subscribe to Adam, guys.
Hey, thanks, guys. And Emily, I'll talk to you soon. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thanks so much. You too.
All right. Bye. All right, guys. Well, that was Emily D. Baker talking about the Real Housewives of New Jersey, not only, but also some Kardashian stuff. We kind of went all over the spectrum. What a great conversation. If you're not following her, go follow her. She's amazing. And again, she makes me stay on these lives. Not makes me, but makes me excited to stay on these lives for as long as we do. So guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that like button, go subscribe to Emily, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell on the next video that we have coming up. We're about to go live with Ika Wong in 2 minutes. Guys, we're going to be talking about the Real Housewives of Dallas. See you there. Bye, guys.